I'd like to begin this video by giving something of a disclaimer. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I generally try to keep my content family friendly. Whether it's with my reaction videos, reviews, or any other creative content, I generally try to make sure that what I'm presenting is suitable for all audiences. Today, however, that's not going to be the case. Instead, what I'm going to be looking at is something that I would usually never even think to touch. It is a horror movie, it is rated 18, and it is most certainly not something that I would recommend someone else to go and see, especially if those people, are under the age limit. However, the reason I'm reviewing this today isn't so much because of the movie itself, but rather everything surrounding it. There's how this film came into existence, the response it got from audiences, and how it started this new trend in horror that looks like it's going to be hanging around for a while. So, just to be clear, I will not be showing any footage from this movie. I won't be showing any pictures that might be deemed as distressing. However, I will be discussing things that are a bit more mature than what my audience is used to. This is just a movie that's been piquing my curiosity for quite some time now, and I just feel like I need to discuss it in order to get a few things off of my chest. So, with all that said, let us begin, and I hope you enjoy.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go...
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell. The demons squeal in sheer delight. It's you they spy, so plump, so right. For though the groove is hard to beat, yet still you stand with frozen feet. You try to run, you try to scream, but no more sun you'll ever see. For evil reaches from the crypt to crush you in its icy grip.
That's it? Huh. Oh well. Hello Starbearers, this is GeoStar7 here, and today we're going to be reviewing something that's a little bit different, something outside my comfort zone, you could say. Today we're going to be reviewing Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey. So, for those of you who don't know, Blood and Honey is a British independent slasher film that was written, directed and produced by Rhys Frake Waterfield. He made this movie over 10 days on a $100,000 budget. It has all of the familiar tropes that you would find in a slasher film, like blood, gore, teenagers being brutally murdered in all sorts of creative ways, and also psychopathic killers. So yeah. But what makes this slasher film stand out from all the others is that it features reimagined versions of Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet from the A.A. Milne stories. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, how did a film like this come into existence? Like, how is it possible someone's able to use these characters in this way? Well, that's actually a very interesting story. So, as we all know, the very first Winnie the Pooh book was published in 1926. There was sequel after sequel after sequel, and it became one of the most beloved children's books series that anyone had ever seen. Now, in the 1960s, Walt Disney purchased the rights to those characters, and they made it into not only one of its most innocent and beloved properties, but also one of its most financially successful ones. Like, seriously, even just the merchandising alone is a money-making juggernaut. However, everything changed in 2022, because on that year, the very first Winnie the Pooh book officially entered the public domain. What that meant was the book was no longer protected under any sort of copyright law. What it also meant was that Disney no longer held the exclusive rights to those characters. Instead, literally anyone could take the characters from that book and use them in whatever way they pleased, without facing any legal repercussions. This caught the attention of Frank Waterfield, who decided that he was going to take these children's characters and present them in a way that had never been done before. Specifically, turning them into feral monsters who go on a killing spree. Now, that being said, Frank Waterfield couldn't do literally anything that he wanted with the characters. When he was making this movie, he actually had to be very careful that his story and characters did not resemble the Disney versions in any way, shape, or form, because those characters are still very much protected under copyright law. He also couldn't use any characters that did not appear in the first book, so he couldn't use characters like Roo, Kanga, or even Tigger. Not only that, but like I said, this movie was made on a budget of just $100,000. To put that in perspective for you, it cost them less money to make this movie than the camera that was used to film it. Let that sink in for a moment. That is how cheap this movie was. However, even with all of those limitations, Frank Waterfield went out to the real 100-acre woods. He filmed over 10 days, and he created what was the first in what he called the Twisted Childhood Universe, which is a series of horror films based on fairy tale characters that have entered the public domain. I'll elaborate a little bit more on those in a moment, but let me just tell you a little bit more about how this film really started to get people's attention. So, when the existence of Blood and Honey got out to the public, it immediately went viral. There were some people like me who were very intrigued by this idea. Like, how exactly do you take Winnie-the-Pooh, one of the most beloved children's characters ever created, and turn that franchise into something that would terrify adults? Like, I think we were all very interested to see how this was going to be pulled off. However, at the same time, there were also people who absolutely hated this idea. Some people were flat out outraged at Frank Waterfield for doing this. Like, how could this man take one of the most innocent childhood properties and just exploit it in this gruesome and unchild-friendly way. And yes, that was a reasonable argument to be made, but like I said, legally there was nothing anyone could do about it. Like, because the first Winnie-the-Pooh book was in the public domain, he had the legal right to do whatever he wanted with those characters. Like, there was nothing anyone could do about it. He was completely within his rights to do it. And as other people pointed out to those critics, just because this film exists, no one says you have to go and see it. Like, if you want to pretend it doesn't exist, then just pretend it doesn't exist. Don't go see it. You know, no one's saying you have to watch this and have your childhood ruined, if you know what I mean. So the story does sort of start out similar to how it is in the books, but Frank Waterfield does take some creative liberties in order to help with the direction that he's going with. So it starts out with a young Christopher Robin going into the 100-acre woods, and he meets Pooh, Piglet, Rabbit, and Owl, and he sees them, and he ends up befriending them. However, it's made clear even at this point that there's something not quite right about these creatures. They're actually described as what some people would call abominations. They seem to be part animal and part human at this point. So there are those uneasy things, but Christopher Robin being young, he ignores those warning signs, and he ends up, befriending them, much like he does in the original book. And he keeps visiting them, and crucially, he brings them food so that they can, survive out in the wilderness. However, inevitably, as the years go by, Christopher Robin grows older, and he eventually grows old enough that he has to go and attend college in order to become a doctor. So he ends up leaving Pooh, Piglet, and all the others, and they end up having to fend for themselves. When that happens, winter comes, food is scarce, and they are on the brink of starvation. Like, it's made very clear that they're going to die if they don't do something. And it's at that point that Pooh makes the decision that if they're going to survive, they have to consume one of their own. And they end up killing and eating Eeyore. And the trauma of that event just has an emotional, psychological impact on the group. Like they grow resentful towards humanity, and especially Christopher Robin for abandoning them, and eventually they make a pact that they will return to their animal instincts. They will renounce their humanity side, and they even swear never to talk ever again. And then 5 years later, Christopher Robin, who now has a fiancée, he decides to come back to the 100-acre woods to visit his friends and to introduce them to his fiancée. And he thinks it's going to be like a happy reunion and just so good to see everyone again, not realising like what has happened to them in that time. And it eventually, Piglet comes and he murders Christopher Robin's fiancée, and then Pooh comes, and it becomes very clear to Christopher that something very bad has happened to them, and he ends up being captured, and Pooh keeps him prisoner, and he tortures him, and so basically Christopher Robin is his prisoner. He's getting revenge on him, and at the same time, there's this group of girls who are coming to a getaway house in the local area, and that just starts off events where Pooh and Piglet start picking them off one by one. So yeah, that's generally the setup of the movie, and yeah, I've got to say, for what they managed to do, it looks pretty good, I will admit. one interesting fact that you need to know is actually that this was actually filmed in the real life 100 Acre Woods. For those of you who don't know, the real 100 Acre Woods in the A.A. Milne books, it was inspired by Ashdown Forest in the UK. So the director decided, you know what? We're better to film the 100 Acre Woods than the real 100 Acre Woods. And so they chose that as their filming location. And the good thing was that they didn't have to build any sets. Like, they didn't have to waste any budget on that. They had an Airbnb hotel that they could use for where the girls were staying. All of the cars belonged to the to the cast and crew members, as they could use different rooms as substitutes for other scenes that they needed to get done. There were trailers around in the area. There was a sort of tree house that could be Pooh's home. Like, quite literally, they didn't have to spend really much any money on their sets. So they were very lucky there. Another interesting thing that they were able to save money on was actually the opening, because the movie actually begins with these little scratch animations depicting like how Christopher Robin came to the 100 Acre Woods and met his friends, how Eeyore was killed, and how it had a psychological damage on the rest of the group and everything. And yeah, not only does that animation, it does sort of pay homage to the original illustrations from the Winnie-the-Pooh books, but at the same time, it's not like it's their chance to actually present Pooh, Piglet, and the others in sort of a more twisted way. Because if you look at the designs, they're not the same designs from the book. Like, they're a bit more abstract. You can see they're a little bit more anthropomorphic. Like they're really showing that there's something not quite right about these creatures just from the different way they do those illustrations, really. And and they do use CGI effects in this film as well. Like, they do use some of that, but obviously because of the low budget, they have to use them very sparingly. And that's probably for the best, if I'm being honest, because if you look at some of the CGI effects that they use, when you look at them close up, yeah, they're not really the best, really. Like, there's a bit with a wood chipper where they have CGI blood coming out of it. They make bees out of CGI, and they don't always look very convincing. And yeah, so yeah, like not all of them are. So the CGI effects aren't all that good. I think the only real big budget effect that they were able to really do was towards the end, where they actually had a truck that exploded. So yeah, they had two cars in that scene, but they could only explode one of them because of the budget. And I think even that one was only possible because they were able to get a little bit more money in order to do some reshoots and really just improve some of the shots and everything. I also have to comment on how they use lighting sometimes, because like there are some times when it's a bit too dark to see everything that's going on, but other times it's done very well. Like in the beginning, like there's a thunderstorm going on when Pooh and Piglet like first make their appearance and capture Christopher Robin, and so of course they have that whole thing where it's completely dark over in one area, and then lightning flashes, and then you see Pooh standing there, and the lightning just keeps coming. I mean, I think they did use it a little bit too much in that scene. Like there was a flash of lightning, like like every few seconds, which isn't really that believable. But yeah, it really does get across that how much of a tense scene this is. But you have to give credit to the director, though, because, like, as much as he enjoyed this effect, he knew he couldn't use lightning all of the time because, you know, it wouldn't be realistic if it was always stormy weather out there. So what he actually did instead in one scene was actually to have a flickering light out by where there was a jacuzzi. So that way, the light would flicker on and off, and it allowed Pooh and Piglet to sneak up on this girl who was in the jacuzzi, and yeah, it just really had that. It just really had that good effect, really. Like I said, though, sometimes the lighting was a little bit too dark to see what was going on, and most glaringly of all, I think, is that it becomes very clear that they're filming this on a handheld camera, because, like, especially in some of the chase scenes, you can see the camera is just shaking and shaking all the time that the characters are running. So yeah, it was. So yeah, you had that. However, and like you had some good makeup effects as well. Like you could see like where Christopher Robin gets injured. Like there's like he's got scars on his back. He's got a deep gash on his face towards the end, and there was just a lot of other makeup effects to make the kills look a little bit more gory as well, and yeah, that was done really well. One thing I was a little bit divisive on, though, was actually the masks that they used for Pooh and Piglet. Now, I do know for a fact that these were made by a professional company over in America called Immortal Masks. Like, they've made some of the most famous movie masks ever made, really. I can't remember what ones they've made, but like they're very well renowned. And you know, you do get a little bit of movement from them, like when the actors are wearing them, and you get different expressions as well. For example, you see Pooh frowning at one point when he goes to kill somebody. Or he gives a slight extra smile with his mouth, or he gives a sadistic grin. So yeah, like they are capable of showing a different range of expressions and movements like that. But for the most part, you know, the movements and expressions are very limited. Also, I wouldn't really say that they're that convincing most of the time. Like, I really don't know if you could look at these masks and actually think that they were an anthropomorphic bear and an anthropomorphic pig, really. Like you could just look at these and just assume that they were bulky lumberjacks in overalls and cheap Halloween masks. You know they're not always that convincing. Like, you can definitely see the budget there. Not only that, but like even in some of the scenes, like you do start to question the logic a little bit. Like I say, there's a scene early on where Christopher Robin's fiance is getting murdered by Piglet, and it's happening right in front of him, and he does not do jack all to try and save her. He's just screaming, "Piglet, stop! Stop! Don't do this! Stop!" Like, for God's sake, do something! At least try to pull him off. I mean, like, come on, that's your fiance. At least try to help her. And then there's other things like Pooh can apparently control bees. Like, he actually has supposedly these telepathic powers that lets him control bees, and he sends them to attack people. And I was like, really? Come on, what? And that's not it. Oh, but like, there's another scene where he goes to kill somebody by running over their head in a car. So yes, Winnie-the-Pooh can apparently drive a car now. But it's not just him. There's also Piglet. There's a scene with two girls in a pool. One's lying down, one's in the water, and Piglet even though Piglet has a very easy kill with the one on the pool side, he actually decides to go for the girl who's in the water. He tries throwing a chain to get at her, but it doesn't reach. And even though he's got the clear advantage by being on the pool side, instead of like just grabbing his mallet and just jumping into it to kill her, like he just gets in the water and slowly starts to approach her, and the girl doesn't try to get out of the water. She just goes deeper and deeper until Piglet catches up with her. It's just like, I don't know, like, I'm sure there's like an explanation for why they did it that way, but like it just seemed a little bit weird. And what else? Oh yeah, there was towards the end, Pooh's on top of a truck and he's trying to get girls who are driving the truck, and even though he's on top and they're driving, like, they just keep driving straight. Like, even though there's this monster on their truck, they don't try to shake him off or brake to send him flying. Like, they just keep driving. It's, yeah, like I said, like, there are some points where the writing, you know, you do question the logic of the writing there and what's really going on. There is some good writing here, though, I will admit. Like, you know how in most horror films, or just films in general, there's always the problem of people having modern technology, like mobile phones and everything. Like if they have those, like, they could easily call for help and everything. This film does have a way of taking that out of the picture. Like, they do have a way of making sure that nobody has their phone on them, so they can't instantly call for help. It's a little bit strange, but yeah, like, I do give the director credit for, like, knowing ahead of time how to take those out of the picture. And also, for the most part, they do keep things a little bit tame with other things. Like, if you were to watch something like Friday the 13th, like, you definitely see things like smoking or drugs or even nudity and things like some of those distasteful things. But for the most part, like, they do manage to avoid that sort of thing. Like, there's no drugs mentioned. Nobody, I think, gets drunk or on alcohol or anything. I think there was a deleted scene where Pooh was going to be shown smoking, but they cut that. There is one scene of nudity, but that's literally the only instance of it happening, and it is very brief. Like Pooh rips a girl's shirt when he's trying to force her to a wood chipper or something, and you do see her breast, but that's literally it. And then even towards the end, there was this scene with a group of guys coming to help some of the girls who had survived. Like, there were these older guys who decided to go and attack Pooh to defend them, and you know, that's pretty admirable. Like, I think in some other movies, like, when help came, those men would try to take advantage of the girls, but no, they really stick up for them and try to defend them. I mean, Pooh ends up killing all of them, but yeah, like, that is admirable there. So overall, what do I really think about Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey? Well, I'll be honest with you, I was prepared to be absolutely terrified by this movie. I actually considered watching it in the dark and recording my reactions to it to show all of you, but I was afraid that I would be so scared by what I saw that I would be completely freaked out, and that I'd eventually just have to turn the light on because I wouldn't be able to stand what I was seeing. So I didn't bother doing any of that. Having seen the movie now for myself, though, I've got to say, it's not really as scary as I was expecting it to be. And don't get me wrong, there were definitely scenes that creeped me out and made me cringe. Like I say, there's that scene where Pooh runs over that girl's head and you see, you know, her eyeball popping out and looking so gory. That you see skeletons with the flesh completely ripped off. You see like I say, someone going into a wood chipper and getting grinded, and it's, you know, that you do see those things that do make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. However, it's not the living nightmare I was expecting it to be. Maybe it's because I've seen other slasher movies like Friday the 13th, so I'm sort of used to how things go in those movies, or maybe it's just because I'm older, or maybe it's just because I can see where the movie had a limited budget. But for whatever reason, there was never a moment where I felt like I was going to be having nightmares after watching the film, and it didn't feel like a big game changer like everyone. It didn't feel like the game changer that everyone was expecting it to be. And from what I've heard, that's generally what the overall response to this film was. Because despite all of the hype that was surrounding its release, despite all the interest that people had going into it, they ultimately felt like when they went to go and see it, it didn't live up to their expectations. Like, it didn't go all the way with its concept, and it was quickly forgotten about after they'd seen it. So yeah, to put it bluntly, a lot of people feel like this movie sucked, really. However, despite its critical reception, it almost didn't matter, because one fact was undebatable. Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey was inevitably a financial success. Because, like I said, this movie was made on a budget of just $100,000, and because of all the attention that it got online, it ended up being released in theatres. And because of all the curious people who went to go and see it, the movie ended up grossing $5.2 million. That's more than 50 times its budget. Like, those are the kind of figures that big budget studios only dream about making with their movies. And so, with that much of a financial gain, it was inevitable that Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey was going to get a sequel. And so they did get a sequel in 2024, but not only that, it also kick-started that twisted childhood universe that I mentioned. And what's crazy is that so many movies are being planned for this universe. Like, we're getting no less than 5 TCU movies next year, and apparently, even after that, we're going to get 5 more. Like, I don't know how successful this shared universe will have, because, let's face it, if you're not Marvel, then it often happens that that shared universes do crumble before they really get going. But who knows? You know, this is, like I said, this is a unique idea. The first one was an incredible success, a phenomenal financial success, and yeah, so who knows what the future holds for this? It's going to be very interesting to see. Like, I don't know if I'll go and see all of the movies, but I will admit, like, even now, this does have my undivided attention, if I'm being honest. So yeah, everyone. So that's my review of Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey. Do I think it's a great movie? Well, no. I can definitely see where some improvements could be made. Like, you can see the budget and everything, but at the same time, I really do have to respect just how well it came out on the budget that it was made, if I'm being honest. I've already actually bought the second Blood and Honey movie. I will be going to see that. But yeah, so yeah, like I say, it's probably not a movie that I would see like over and over again. Like I wouldn't actively go out of my way to keep watching it, but I'm open to watching it more times. Like I say, I've got to respect just how well Frank Waterfield managed to put this together, how he managed to make this slasher movie, make monsters out of childhood characters. Yeah, I'm quite glad that I've gone to see it, and more than anything, I'm quite glad that it wasn't scary enough to traumatize me. I'll put my hands up and say that this did not destroy my childhood. Like, you can definitely go back, you can definitely see this film, not have your childhood ruined, and go back to the Disney version if that's what you wanted. But so yeah, anyway, everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this review. If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe. Check out some of the other content that I've got on this channel. Some of it's a lot more family friendly than this. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next review that I do. So until then, stay tuned.
If you go down in the woods today, you'd better not go alone. It's lovely down in the woods today, but safer to stay at home. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because it's the day the teddy bears have their picnic.